And we're going live.
Hi.
It looks like we are live.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. This is ACDC, Araceli and Colette, the Dynamic Change. And my name is Araceli, and I'm a transition wealth advisor and real estate investor. I believe that every transition in life doesn't have to be financially devastating and stressful. I work mostly with professional women to empower them to take charge of their financial life and do that through crafting a financial plan that it fits their lifestyle and dreams. So I'm here with my partner Colette, and we're going to talk about a very interesting subject that's going on right now here in Ontario. Colette, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Colette Rabba. I am a real estate broker in the GTA, mostly West End. I love what I do. The reason why Araceli and I do this show is because we both love what we do, and we both like sharing information because we know out there, not just the internet gives us some, questionable information, but also there's a lot of articles because everybody loves real estate. There's a lot of articles written
Hmm.
on certain things about real estate, and especially when the market's really hot, or if there's, last week we talked about the bubble bursting, things
Yeah.
like that. Real estate is always in the news. And there was an article that was brought to my attention, and yeah, really questionable, very questionable. So that's why we wanted to talk about, this crazy bidding war, these crazy bidding wars that are going on right now. Things have slowed down a little bit. We're at the end of June right now, 2021. Just if you're watching this, 10 years later, to remind yourself how crazy the market was. Honestly, there has been nothing but all these negative articles, bad things. Oh, look at people are getting screwed, and Araceli and I talked about this, and we said, you know what, like there's a lot of things missing from this one article that we're going to talk
Yeah.
about, but also in general, what to do if you are faced with multiple offers and you're a buyer and you really want to know what to do. Like, should you waive home inspection? Should you waive financing? What does that mean at the end if you're not working with an agent that can give you all this information before you even make an offer?
Yeah.
Call somebody else. Like, don't stay with
That's right.
this.
Always have a second opinion. And if you are a buyer and don't have an agent, please don't do that. It does not cost you anything. It's
Right.
worth to have an agent to look after you. It does not cost you anything. So do that.
Exactly. Like the way I tell people, I said, look, if you were in a court of law, would you say to the lawyer, yeah, can you represent both sides?
No, that's not.
Like, that doesn't
That
make
doesn't
any
make
sense.
sense. No.
This is buying a house is not just financially like one of the biggest purchase, or if not the biggest purchase you're ever going to make. It is a very legally binding agreement between you and the seller. Like, it's a big deal. So if things have to go to court, how many times have I heard stories of people telling me? I just heard a story yesterday. Oh, I this happened and I was sued, and I lost $10,000 and $100,000 in my time
Yeah.
that I had to go to court. I had to prepare papers. I had to hire a lawyer. Like, these are things that can all be avoided if you had proper representation. Listen, like, I can't convince you to use a list, sorry, like, to not go to the listing agent to make a deal. Some people, that's why they think, oh, I'm going to go directly to the listing agent because they're going to cut their commission and I'm going to be able to save some money. So that's mistake number one, because what you're losing is the information that an individual agent is mandated to give you. When you go to the listing agent, they already have an agreement, and the first party is the seller. So that's really the biggest thing about having a listing agent, having a buying agent. If you're a buying agent, please get your own representation. Of course, I would want people to hire me, but honestly, if you're not in my area, I'm not going to take it personal, obviously, but please get your own proper agent. This is the other thing too. Did you know that you can ask me if I know someone, let's say in Ottawa,
Mhm.
or in London, I have agents that I'm friendly with. We don't all, dog eat dog world. We actually collaborate a lot of the times, especially outside of our areas. So please, if you need a referral, please call me. I'll be able to I'll point you in the right direction with somebody if I know in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're going to talk about waiving home inspection. Is that
Yeah,
a good idea, right? And this is all over the news, and we want to tell you, what does that mean to you? Like, can you do it? Should you
right.
do it?
Well, this is
Like,
the
just
thing.
tell us more.
Can you share the article? Do you have, so this is,
Oh,
I like to tell a story based on a fact, an actual, a real time.
yeah, that's my elevator pitch.
It's okay, like a real time
I'm trying to find the
article.
article.
So this is what, when we were talking about the article and how things are written in certain ways, obviously, it's they want it to be exciting and, oh my God, these poor people, and this whole thing. But when I look at a family like this, where they so basically what they did is they went ahead and went into multiple offer situation where they did not get the house.
That's
Then
the one.
apparently the sale fell through. Yeah, if you want to scroll up a little bit. So the sale fell through for those people, the first buyer. So then the owner or the seller, who was also the listing agent, went back to these people to say, hey, the first deal fell through. If you would like to come back and make another offer, I need more money. And I think they wanted to waive inspection. So that was the whole, and whatever and the other thing too about this article, it doesn't say if they had a buying agent, so it really doesn't show that they were talking to anybody or asking any advice on their end. So I think that was one mistake. It's funny how they left it out of the article, because if they did have their own buying agent, that buying agent could be liable as well. So no mention of that. So what they did, they waived the home inspection and they gave them more money and they got the house. But then, because of COVID-19, they didn't move in for several months. And then once they did, there was problems with. So this is a property that's rural, and they had a well. So there's a big deal about the well. So here's an issue with the well: no inspection. That's not even that important. Even if you have a city house, the well is secondary anyway, but that's a whole other thing. What else? So then they said it's going to cost them another $120,000 to replace the septic system. So these are all country things that, if you are not familiar with that, if you live in the city and then you buy a country house, these are huge things that you really want to look after, right? So now the other thing too, so they waived the inspection. So in early fall, I would say in 2020, when the seller's market took over and people simply couldn't buy a house with that condition, which is not true, because there was always somebody right behind you that was willing to buy the house without having home inspection. Okay, remember that. Okay. So let's say a home inspection costs about $500, and depending on the size of the property, there may be extra costs as well. And if there's a swimming pool, or like these people, there's a septic and a well, it might cost a little bit extra. So let me tell you, there is something called a pre-inspection. So even if you're in multiple offers, I had buyers who spent the money, they didn't pay $500. It's a quick run around the house to say, okay, attic is good, windows are good, furnace and air conditioning, the electrical panel, everything looks really good. At least you feel comfortable and confident to make an offer. And you are waiving when you make this is before you make the offer.
Mhm.
So number one, there's something called a pre-inspection. Number two, these are ways to fix this issue. If you
Okay,
say,
so Colette, who does the pre-inspection? How can you request it? Tell us a little bit more, because I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
okay, so you do call a home inspector. So a home inspector, you make a, so this is the other thing too about the hot market. We don't have a lot of time, because they might only have the house on the market for a few days. So you have to scramble, you have to go see the house, you have to have that speed dial on for that inspector to call them to say, hey, listen, I'm really excited about this house. I want to make an offer. When can you come in? You make that appointment with that home inspector. They run through the house with you, maybe an hour, and it's not even $500, it's less, but they don't give you the full binder of like everything. They just check the major things, that foundation, I already went through that list. So to make you feel like, okay, there's no crazy things that are going on. In a case like this, where it's a rural property and you have, let's say, 60 days to close, you make the offer, you waive conditions, but then you get an inspection after. So this is the magic. You can have a post inspection too. There's nobody stopping you. You write it into the offer to say, we want the post inspection. If they have nothing to hide, you can't write it as a condition, but you can write it in to say, we want to walk through the house and see what's going on. Because this is the thing. If you have no leverage as a buyer, what are you going to do on closing? Too bad. But if you can prove that there are latent defects and that they should have told, the sellers should have told you something, or that you have seen defects, then number one, you either don't close, or number two, you say, hey, guess what? This is not acceptable. We want, for the, let's say, whatever it was, $120,000 for the septic system. Say, we expect we expect this to be fixed, because in the offer it states in good working condition. Where are these clauses that protect the buyer? I don't understand. See, this is the thing with articles. We don't know the whole story. We don't know who's been representing these people. And if in that agreement of purchase and sale, this is a legal document and it's not written in there, it makes me crazy.
So Colette, wait a second. Okay, so let me see if I understand this right. If I do a pre-inspection, it's basically just a quick walk around of the house to see if there's anything that is wrong with it. Now, if you accept the contract and you won the bidding war and you waive inspection, after you close, you do the own inspection, correct? Can you go back? But I don't think you can go back after you close, right?
Well, this is the interesting thing. So it's all very technical. So in the agreement of purchase and sale, if you do not write it as a clause to say, I want inspection, there is no waiving of anything. One of the boilerplate in the agreement, the boilerplate thing that's in there says, you as a buyer have a right to inspection. So you say, okay, I have the right to inspection. So it doesn't say when you have to do the inspection, but that you have the right to. So unless you specifically write it into a clause in the back on a schedule, say, I want inspection, and then you waive the inspection or you approve how the inspection went. So that you don't have to waive it. You just have to say, I accept, whatever we found. But if you don't write it into a schedule, there's nothing to waive. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's not like the moving forward is that if the seller says, hey, you know what, you don't want inspection, right? And if you say, no, I don't need inspection, you never say that. You say, I want inspection at a certain time. I want visits. I want to check the water. I want to check the well water. I want to check the septic. I want to make sure everything is done before closing. Why would I inherit all the crap like this? Absolutely. If this is such a straight and obvious, oh, I screwed you situation, then the buyer should absolutely go to court and fight for these defects.
Okay, so you can always go back if there is something that is absolutely, that the seller knew and they hit it and they knew they were counting on no inspection, right? To make the sale.
I wouldn't say that exactly. I would say things are all about timing. So number one, if you please get inspection every time, number one. Sometimes inspectors don't see things either. Sometimes inspectors don't inspect septic or pool or some other things that are very highly technical. if that's not their specialty, because there's a lot of new HVAC products. There's a lot of other stuff that, you know, the average inspector might not know. I don't want to speak for anybody, but they might not know the details of it. So it's all about timing. Number one, if you can't get a full inspection, get a pre-inspection. It takes an hour. Number two, if the seller does not allow you to do a pre-inspection, walk away. Do not even bother. Like, why would you want to inherit problems? Number three, do a simple address search on the internet. You might find out if there was a murder or if there was a break-in or things like that, that an inspector won't find anyway. So these things might be, all you have to do is type in the address and see what pops up. And you might scroll down a couple pages. The other thing too is post-inspection. When you write the offer, you write in 1,000 things if you have to. I want post-inspection, I want 2 visits, I want to come with the contractor, whatever you want to write in, as you as a buyer has leverage between the offer and closing. Once closing and the money and the keys have exchanged hands, then it goes to court. It goes to court automatically. So I'm not saying, oh, definitely you have a right to do all this stuff. It's all about how you write that document to protect yourself as a buyer.
Yeah. Well, this is very, very important. That it could mean a nightmare versus being able to walk away from a bad deal if you find something. And, you know, we understand that right now we're trying to get rid of as many clauses as possible to make it easy to win the bid. But at the same time, you want to be safe because this is one of the biggest purchases we make and you don't want to have a limit, right?
Well, the other thing too is like, and when I say that you have this time in between purchase, the agreement and closing. So I'll give you an example. It actually happened to me. I bought a property and the people, I had 2 visits. So I did 1 visit, which I recommend everybody to do 2 visits. 1 visit, and it was, I think it was like 60 days closing. So let's just say 60 days. I visit the property at 30 days and then I visit the property maybe like the weekend before I'm supposed to close. So either a few days or like a whole weekend in between. So the first visit, everything's fine. I walk around and I did inspection on the property too. So this is not regarding inspection necessarily, but I noticed that on my visits, there was a lot of junk in the house and a lot of junk in the garage, lots of stuff, couches, old furniture, old toys, junk, garbage at the side of the house. So I made sure I spoke to the agent, the other agent, the selling agent. I made sure I talked to the lawyers. The lawyers will be, your lawyer will be your best friend. They should represent you and only you. That's why when you get even a real estate transaction, you cannot use the same lawyer as the sellers. Do you know that? That's why you shouldn't use the same agent either. Anyway, what happened was the people left a whole, so my second visit, still the house was full, not the house, but the garage, there was a lot of garbage left behind, a lot of garbage outside of the house. I called my lawyer, said, hey, what am I supposed to do about this? This is crazy. Like, I don't want to inherit all their garbage. What can I do? They said you could do 2 things. You can either hold off closing till they remove it, or you can hold back money and say, you know, the cleaning, the removal of all this stuff is going to cost me about $5,000. I'm holding back $5,000. And that's what I did. You don't think those people want that money? Of course, it's not going to cost me $5,000, but it has to make them hurt to feel like, oh, we can't leave our garbage. That's not fair. So there's always a way. Same thing with inspection. If you say, look, you said that this was in good working order. The septic system and the plumbing system and the well is all in good working order, and now it's not. You, as a buyer, have to say to your lawyers, how can I remedy this before closing? So all these things might be super painful and super stressful and, you know, craziness, but at least you have leverage and you haven't finalized the deal. Once they have your money and you have the keys,
that's it.
Go ahead, take them to court. You have to fine them. You have to like where are they going to move? If you don't know where they're moving, you have nowhere to serve them papers. You have to hire lawyers. You have to pay for lawyers. You have to get all of the documents and proof. You have to prove it's your choice, your responsibility as a buyer to prove that this was a latent defect and they should have disclosed it or fixed it on closing or before closing.
And at this time now, it just becomes a nightmare because then you have to take a lot of time to do all of these. And it also costs money, right? Because it's not easy to find people. It's not easy to hire a lawyer and serve papers and all of that kind of thing.
Right.
All
And
of that
during
is money.
COVID, do you know how the courts are backed up now too? It's not like you're going to get a court date like anyone. At the best of times, you don't get a court date that fast. But to hire a lawyer and for them, I can't imagine how much it's going to cost to do like this article specifically. I can't imagine.
It would have to be something very, very expensive, like you were talking about the septic system, that is $120,000. But you can also be left with something that costs you $20,000. That is still significant, but it's not significant enough to go and get a lawyer and do all of these because of the time. And also it might be something that you need to do right away to fix something that can wait until you find the seller, right?
Well, and the curious thing that I was reading in this article, why did they take that long to move into the house? Like if you buy a house, like what happened? And this is the bad part too, that I think the seller can argue that they left the house in great condition, but because they didn't come in, move in for a few months, that all the septic stuff and all the well stuff happened within those few months, and it's their fault. So now, like the buyers have to prove that.
It just becomes it becomes more difficult now. This is, I think, is an unusual case because the majority of the cases you're going to be moving right away. You close, you move in. But this was a particularly, odd situation in which happened to have an issue. Plus, they have this also delay on moving in.
Right, and I also don't. And yes, it's very rare for crazy stuff like this to happen specifically. But I also read a story not too long ago. I believe it was a couple of years ago now, where another property that had a well. So it was, and this is what's happening this year, especially where people from the city are moving into country houses and they have a well in it and they have a septic and they have no idea what any of that means and how that can affect their overall health and well-being. So a few years ago, this article was about somebody, they didn't want to point the finger to say the sellers, but somebody put gasoline in, they poured it in the well. So now you cannot use that water. You have to not just remediate and flush out all the water in the well, but you have to clean the well itself too, or dig a whole new well because that residual gasoline will
never get rid of it. It's very, very difficult to flush that out.
Heartbreaking. So who exactly did it? You want to take that seller to court, you have to prove that they did it. And how do you prove that? Like, somebody comes in the middle of the night and pours something, or if they hire someone to, like, and why do people do that? Like, this is the kicker, right? Why do people do things like this? I don't know.
Nobody knows what people do, what they do, believe me.
I know. There's no sense in thinking about it. But this is my whole point of doing this show. Like, you and I talk about stuff like this all the time. There is always an answer. There is always a way to proceed without going to court. If you just did, and this is the difference between good agents and not so good agents. The other big flag in this article was that the seller was a listing agent. So you can't even go to the listing agent that is sort of, still representing the seller, but even to get a second, a little bit more information from that, because the seller doesn't have to really divulge anything if they think there's nothing wrong. But being a licensed agent, like this is the bad thing. The seller should have, he or she was the listing agent. They have a right to telling the, like, not a right, sorry. They have, like, we are held to a higher standard. We have to tell the truth.
Yeah.
We have to give information if we know it. So yes,
Exactly.
I hope these people take them to court, the seller.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I hope it goes well. Well, this is the episode for today. If you know anybody that has gone through waiving inspection and maybe they didn't get what they were going to get, let us know and we can, showcase it here, find out what exactly happened. But yeah, my advice for buyers is never buy without an agent because, as I said, it does not cost you anything.
Right.
And the valuable information that they can give you, especially for a good seasoned agent, it could save you thousands of dollars. Also negotiating the price, telling you what you need to do after you close, if you decide to close on the property, things that are major, right? Like, and the thing is, going to a house that looks really nice, that doesn't mean that it's a good house, right? That those are just cosmetic things.
Yeah.
A hole in the wall doesn't scare me at all. But things
No.
that you don't see, like electrical, plumbing, sewer, windows, the roof, those are the things that you need somebody to really know what they're looking at to be able to tell you that it's not a good thing or it's not going to last very long. So,
well, and if there's anything that you take away from this episode is that you always, let's say you are actually a buyer and you're in the process of you haven't closed yet. Please do a post inspection, take your visits, ask the seller if you can go in now and do a quick inspection. You don't even have to say quick inspection. You can say, hey, I want my visit, and bring an inspector in during one of your visits.
yeah.
Like, this is totally allowed, but once you close, it's much harder. It's much harder to get through to the buyer or to the seller to say, oh, we found this and we found that.
Mhm.
Honestly, most people are very reasonable and they want to pass on a good house to you. So they might not even know if there are some issues.
Yeah.
So please always, talk to your agent. Don't wait till you close to find these issues, please.
Yeah.
And we're always able to be reached.
Yeah.
So if you have any other questions, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Colette. And I hope you're safe and have all the inspections that you need. So we're
Yes,
going to
thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Please bring your questions, please.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, bye, Colette.
Bye.